Welcome to the Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeem McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow Akina McGee on the Twitter and Akina McGee on the IG.
Make sure you follow this, download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. You want to know why? Because we said so. That's why. And also, so you can catch up on other live shows we have airing throughout the week. So, if you happen to miss them, you can go back and watch them and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you download the Sports Zone Chicago app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, please follow us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, please find Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. And speaking of our podcast on Second City Sports, you can subscribe to our podcast by following War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We're available on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And speaking of War Media, why don't you guys go and give them a follow on all social media platforms at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, that's at War Media, WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. You have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments to the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, I've given Lakina full power to give you fools to be and be abused.
Bye-bye.
I love when she says that. But before we begin, we must remind you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that Sports World and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku TV, that's okay. You definitely have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your personal PC, or your Chromebook. Just go ahead and go to that Google Play Store, download that Roku TV app, and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now on Roku TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand.
Anywhere, anytime you need it.
And you know we will provide.
Okay. No, it's just that. Oh, okay, yeah. It's not Landon said it. It's not. But you know what? Look, we got a busy show coming up. Of course, we got all the crazy stuff that happened both in the NBA and NHL playoffs. Sox get a much needed win. Yay! We're taking a 10-game losing streak. Woohoo! Cubs was a tough series, getting swept by the Marlins and other happenings in baseball over the weekend. Also, too, got a couple of big upsets in the NHL playoffs. We're going to have a new Stanley Cup champion. So much more to talk about. So, but first, we're going to talk about the NFL draft. The Bears, fill some holes, the much-needed holes, and also, too, get some guys that some people probably didn't have a lot on the radar. But, of course, we talked about Darnell Wright from Tennessee, that he was the first-round pick. They had about 9 other picks after that. So, Sid, what was sort of like the guy? Was there a guy that you thought that the Bears would pick that he didn't, he got picked up by somebody else, or they didn't pick him, or was it, did you think that the Bears got enough to kind of fill in those holes?
I think the Bears were trying to fill in some of those holes. A couple of my guys that the defensive end, I think it was Derek Hall from Auburn. I thought the Bears should have looked at him. There was another one out of Georgia Tech. They didn't select him. But just looking at this list from their remaining 9 picks up, I saw what they did. They tried to fill out their roster. I think that Tyreek Stevenson, the defensive back out of the University of Miami, with their second round pick, I think he's going to help the Bears in that secondary. Lakina, we talked about it before. It wasn't the position of need, unlike the offensive and defensive lines, but just adding to that secondary should help the Bears out a lot. And also, too, in that 4th round, they picked up Rashawn Johnson, the backup running back to Bijan Robinson out of Texas. Of course, he's going to back up Khalil Herbert and Travis Ebner. Ebner's still on this roster for next year. So maybe you could do something with him. I'm referring to Mr. Johnson on special teams that they like. And also, too, with their 4th round pick from Philadelphia, they picked up wide receiver Tyler Scott out of Cincinnati. So they're basically with the Tyler Scott pick, they just filling out depth on their roster. Now, the fifth round pick I want to discuss with you, Lakina, Noah Sewell, the linebacker out of Oregon. We talked about the Bears linebacking core being set as far as their starters are concerned, with their two free agents in Jack Sanborn coming on last year. And this is added depth again. And I think Sewell could help out the Bears in the linebacking core.
Yeah, I mean, still, well, of course, of course, his older brother plays for the Bears too. I think there's like two other guys that are in the league as well. So it's a
Hmm.
very talented family there. But I mean, look, they feel in need. I think he was about like third team All Pac-12, I believe. So they got a nice little
Hmm.
guy that's very big, very athletic and such. But now, the Rashawn Johnson pick. I mean, I know some people wanted Bijan. Some people said that he's better than Bijan Robinson. I mean, it's sort of, it kind of depends
Hmm.
who you talk to. So like he had a couple of long kickoff returns, for a long. I think he had like one touchdown and such. The Tyree Stevenson won his entry from Miami. I mean, he was one of the few bright spots on that Miami squad this
Hmm.
last season. So I'm looking forward to see like what he's gonna bring in and such. So again, that cornerback position is kind of like the only sort of like one of the bigger holes for the Bears. Joining Jalen Johnson. I'm wondering like, okay, what does Eberflus have for him? Now, I'm already seeing some Bears fans. You know how some Bears fans are. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna go, win a division. We're gonna, compete for the division, and perhaps win it." I think I want to ask people to kind of slow down on this. I mean, look,
Yeah.
they didn't get an edge rusher. That was sort of like a thing. There were a couple of edge rushers. I know that there were a couple of guys said that you wanted, but they ended up going to different teams. We'll get to that in a second. But I feel like what the Bears had a nice, they had a solid they had a solid draft. I mean, look, they fill in holes, they fill in the needs, they still need an edge rusher though. But could they pick somebody up from the free agency market? Sure, but I think people need to kind of just sort of slow down on them winning a division. Let's see how these guys look, in camp. And I think if you heard both Ian Cunningham, who's assistant to Brian Poles, and of course, and Matt
Hmm.
Eberflus, they were with character. And I think that, and that's fine. I mean, look, character, does build winning teams. Sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't. So, like, we won't know for like another year or two if these guys are going to be a good fit. So, we'll see what happens.
You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, the first one for the month of May, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in living color. I'm Sid Desakine as we're talking NFL draft in the 2023 selections for your Chicago Bears. Lakina, let's focus in on you mentioned the Bears did not select a defensive pass rusher, but they did select a couple of defensive tackles with their first second round pick of a trade from the Baltimore Ravens, number 53 overall. They selected Gervon Dexter, senior out of Florida, the defensive tackle. In the seventh round, they selected Travis Bell from Kennesaw State. And with the third round pick, number 64 overall, Zach Pickens was selected out of South Carolina. He's a defensive lineman. Lakina, as I said before, I think these picks are, especially the fourth and the seventh round picks, are selections for depth. But I want to see how Gervin Dexter Sr. Fares out for the Bears with that second round pick. He's also got to be an impact player. We talk about getting the pass rush for the Bears, and rightfully so. They need to stop the run as well.
Yeah, they do. That's been like a big issue for them. They're like near last, if not at last place, to the rush defense. So I think they really need
Mhm.
to, stand up for that. That's what you get an edge rusher for. So we'll see if they pick somebody up. We'll see if Pickens, because I know he was played very well for Shane Beamer at South Carolina. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering, like, can he bring something to the table? Can they fit in that scheme that Eberflus wants? So for me, I think that's going to be another thing too with these guys. So yeah, look, like I said, they're filling holes here. I think the Bears did it. Like they did a really nice job. Again, we'll have to wait and see how these guys fit. And look, I think it's all going to sort of be twofold. I mean, look, we talked about with our buddy Herb Howard from the Bigs. I
Mhm.
mean, Jalen Carter, I know that, look, they got Darnell Wright, who I think they wanted Paris Johnson too, but Arizona ended up getting him. But, look, hopefully Wright has a great career. Hopefully, Wright goes to a couple of Pro Bowls and such. But I'm already, we'll get to Philly in a second. But I
Mhm.
feel like this is sort of like maybe one of those picks where you're going to, like, okay, maybe. And I know Gervin Dexter Sr., I know he's another one of those guys from Florida. I didn't play a lot of games last year,
Mhm.
but he was very effective when he did play. So, again, we'll have to wait and see there. But yeah, I think the Bears are kind of solid draft. Like I said, we won't know how these guys are going to fare, for another maybe year or two. So we'll have to just wait and see.
Okay. The second through seventh rounds took place over the weekend since we last talked to you guys last Friday. Lakina, I'll ask you your surprise picks in just a second. We talked about it a little bit before you went on live here today. I'll give I'll give my couple just from the second round alone. Will Levis, we talked about him on Friday League Keenan. He was hyped up to be picked in the first round. That didn't happen. The Tennessee Titans picked him up in the second round. What could this mean for the future of Brian Tannehill? Will he be cut by the time training camp starts? We shall see. And Joey Porter Jr., yes, the son of former Steelers linebacker Jerry Porter. I believe he's still on their coaching staff. His son out of Penn State is selected by the Steelers. I think that should be an interesting storyline going into next year.
Well, yeah, I think that was a really sweet story. I know that they had a nice little moment there. I mean, like I said, he didn't play a lot, when he was at Penn State. That's probably why some people probably thought he was going to be a late first round. He ended up going early in the second round, but still, a great story nonetheless. I mean, the first Super Bowl that that they won, they had they had a little blur picture with Joey Porter and senior and junior. So that was a really cool moment there. But probably one of the better moments. I know this has been been talked about all over the place was Dallas. Now, if you guys did not see this, I know it's been everywhere on social media. I know where have you guys been, but Deuce Vaughn, who is a running back from K-State, his father Chris is an assistant in scouting at with the Cowboys. I think he's been there for about 11 years now, over a decade. A really sweet moment with him. Of course, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, of course, head coach Mike McCarthy, all the the personnel there. He was able to turn his son's pick in. As they were selecting it, they talked with he talked with all of them. He's a great work ethic and a great running back from K-State. So, that was a really sweet moment. And if you guys didn't get a chance to, see that, check it out. I mean, I know you won't have a dry eye. But yeah, I think the Cowboys themselves had a pretty solid draft. I mean, they got Mozzie Smith from Michigan, also too, staying in Michigan, they're tight end Luke Shoemaker. They got DeMarvion Overshawn from Texas. I mean, I think also too, like I said, Deuce Vaughn could be like that guy that could be an extra guy, like going off picks. So I think Dallas had a solid draft. I think Philadelphia, or should we call them the Philadelphia? I guess Philadelphia Bulldogs. I guess we can call them because they had a lot of selection. We'll talk about another trade that they did in a minute, but I thought they had a very solid draft. I know, like I said, I know Bears fans there were some Bears fans that wanted Jalen Carter. I understand that, but other things happened, but they got Nolan Smith, who was his teammate. They got Keely Ringo, who was a cornerback. They got Sidney Brown, the defensive back from Illinois. No, not this Sid, but of course from he's recovered from knee surgery. I know, right? Yeah, he's recovered from knee surgery. But he should be good to go by the time the training camp starts. So they had a really solid draft as well. Talking about Philadelphia, they also traded for DeAndre Swift from Detroit. So they've got you also went to Georgia. So that's a nice, their pickup there. So they're not messing around talking about Philly. So they had a pretty solid draft as well.
What about Arizona? They picked Paris Johnson, that offensive tackle for Ohio State. If I was on the air last Monday, I would have predicted that for the Bears. I think the Bears, if you believe some reports, they wanted to select him. They fell to him at number 9 before they traded with Philadelphia. Selected Darnell right out of Tennessee at number 10. But Arizona did well in their second round pick. B.J. Ojulari, that linebacker out of LSU, which I thought the Bears should have taken a look at. He went to Arizona in the second round. Also in the second round, Keon White, he was selected out of Georgia Tech. He was selected by the New England Patriots. If you know head coach Bill Belichick, or as we call him, Bill Belichick on this show, he loves special teams. He loves speedy guys, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah, I really like that pick for them. Probably one of the steals. It could probably be one of the steals of the draft. So we'll see if I think he'll definitely fit into that that system in New England. So we'll see with New England. I mean, look, I think New England had a pretty solid draft. I mean, it was definitely like one of those sort of like a pretty solid draft by them. Isaiah Bolden, I know we'll probably get to that if we get a chance over the cornerback from Jackson State. Dion made some comments. Again, we will we won't get into it, but we'll probably get into it later on. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I think another team that had a pretty solid draft, I think, was the Giants. I mean, they got Deontay Banks from, of course, we talked about in the first round from Maryland. They got John Michael Schmitz. I know that's the guy Sid wanted from Minnesota, the center there, all Big Ten there. They got Jalen Hyatt, who's a wide receiver. I think he'll fit right in with that Brian Dable offense. And I think they had a pretty solid draft. I think the Giants did. I think the Jets did pretty well too. They got, of course, Will McDonald Jr., the edge rusher from Iowa State. They got Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin, Carter Warren from Pittsburgh, also to Isaiah Apakanaba from Pitt. So a solid draft for them. Pittsburgh, of course, we talk about Robert James and
Mhm.
Joey Porter Jr. They had a couple of solid drafts as well. I think San Francisco filled some needs as well. They got Jake Moody, who probably could be the new kicker there from Michigan. Cameron Latu from Alabama, the tight end. Also, Javier Brown, of course. Remember, they did not have a first round pick. Talk about San Fran. So they had a solid draft there. Seattle, of course, we all know about Pete Carroll. We know he loves draft picks. So we talked about Devin Witherspoon from Illinois, Jackson Smith, Nigaba from Ohio State. They got Derek Hall, the edge rusher, Zach Charbonnet from
Yeah, I was going to ask you about
UCLA.
Zach Charbonnet. I know you watched him last year out of UCLA. I saw him on a couple of games too. That's a good pickup as he's the backup running back to Kenneth Walker the third.
Yeah, so he could be sort of like taking all those trips from him. I'm talking about Kenneth Walker the third. I
Hmm.
think Detroit had a pretty solid pick. They got Hendon Hooker, from Tennessee. I know he's recovering from ACL surgery, so
Hmm.
we'll see his what his prognosis for camp. But look, they got, like I said, we talked about Jameer. I know some people thought that what are they nuts for getting Jameer Gibbs and Jack Campbell, but they redeemed themselves. So they got Brian Branch from Alabama. They got Sam Laporta from he's a tight end from Iowa. So they had a pretty solid draft too overall. Green Bay had a pretty solid draft. I think they set up like 13 players because they had a lot of compensatory picks. But
Yeah.
Lucas Von Ness, of course, talked about him from Iowa. Luke Musgrave, Jaden Reed from Michigan State, a very solid wide receiver from Sparty, Sean Clifford, who could probably perhaps maybe compete with Jordan Love for the starting job. We'll have to wait and see. He went in the fourth round from Penn State. So I would say probably I would say that those are probably my top. Indianapolis, of course, with Anthony Richardson. We'll see if
Hmm.
he's going to be competing for a spot. The spot there. Josh Downs, who I really like from North Carolina. Another Northwestern tight. I know you wanted him to sit, but I'm not going to say it's Adewanoa Abawar from North. I think it's close enough. I would never could get the guy's name, but he ended up going in the fourth round too. So I would say a pretty solid draft for those teams. And who would you say that didn't do well, real quick? I know we're up against it, but
Outside of the first round pick, Lakina, the Chargers. I didn't hear too much buzz about them. I thought they would pick up Bijan Robinson. That didn't happen. I know with their first round pick, I believe they picked up a wide receiver. It was Quentin Johnson
Quentin
out of
Johnson.
TCU. I like that pick, but I didn't hear too much buzz about them. Minnesota, outside of picking up the Addison, the wide receiver out of USC, I didn't hear too much buzz about them. Same with Baltimore. I guess Baltimore was happy that they re-signed Lamar Jackson, but I didn't hear too much buzz of as far as their drafts from those teams. It's also to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, well, I think Tampa. I don't know if they're rebuilding, but they had a
Hmm.
pretty solid draft. They got Kalijah Cansey from Pittsburgh. They got Cody Mach, who's the guard, the offensive guard from North Dakota State. They got an edge rusher in Yaya Diaby. So I think they're kind of like trying to build up, I guess. Tennessee, I thought they had a pretty solid draft. Now I would say Detroit. I think,
Hmm.
like I said, after the first day, I think Detroit did redeem themselves. Baltimore, I mean, yeah, I thought they had a pretty solid draft. I know they plugged in some holes at various spots. Of course, Zay Flowers, I think, will be a big help to that offense, especially now that they have Lamar Jackson in the fold now for a few more years. Miami, I mean, I really didn't hear too much about that. I mean, they only had 5 picks, so that really didn't help their cause. But I didn't think they had an okay draft, not a great draft. I know about the Chargers too. I know other than Johnson and Tuapatu, the linebacker from USC, you really didn't hear too much about.
Hmm.
They were kind of like, oh, they got Max Duda with their last pick, but yeah, I'm sure he's probably gonna be holding the clipboard, right, for that. I think that's really about it. I mean, I thought Vegas did okay too with their draft. I think KC, I know are people in KC are already like buzzing about their draft. They had a pretty solid draft with Anika Uzoma from K State, SMU, Rasheed Rice from SMU. They got a couple other guys, for on the defensive side. So I think they could always use that help. But yeah, I think everyone did okay. I think most teams filled the needs that they needed. Like I said, I'm sure we're going to see what the edge rusher market is going to be for the Bears. So I think that's going to be really going to be the key here and all that. But so we'll see. I mean, but it's fun to talk about the draft and give grades, because we have no clue what's going to happen.
And Mr. Irrelevant for this year for 2023 was Deshaun Johnson, the defensive end out of Toledo. He went to the Los Angeles Rams with the last pick in the 7th round. So we'll see if he even makes the team or gets on the field this year.
Well,
Would you say that this would be fair that you rank Philadelphia, Houston, and Detroit as your top 3?
I would say Philly, Houston. I think there was another team I gotta look through. I think Seattle. Had a really solid draft too. I think those are my top 3.
Yeah, so my top 3: Philadelphia, Houston, and distant third, Detroit.
Okay. All right. So like I said, well, we'll see. Look, you're going back to Deshaun, Jackson for a second from Toledo. Johnson, I should say, from Toledo. I think, look, the last 10, players that have been Mr. Irrelevant, all play at least one game. So, and we all look what happened to Brock Purdy last year. So we'll see. I mean, look, we'll see what happens with him. But yeah, it should be interesting to see if he makes the roster this year. Actually, I'll take a really quick break. Some NBA comment, or we're going to do baseball. What do you want to do?
Baseball.
All right, we'll do baseball. Sox get a much-needed win to snap their losing streak. Cubs lose a tough series in Miami against the Marlins. And, some interesting things happening in baseball, too, and a whole lot more, including an MVP, probably coming back sooner than expected. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown coming up next in Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. Baseball talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Sorry. Welcome back to Second City Sports. We're live in the McCullough on a Monday edition, the first show for the month of May. We're live right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena McGee on the IG.
We have less than 80 minutes or so left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments for us, you can always hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, Sid. I know you're in a little bit of a better mood this morning because the Sox, snapped their, 10-game losing streak. Yay!
Finally.
After Lancelin almost had a no-hitter, but then ended up losing the game. The Sox did to the Rays. They do salvage the series in a pretty dramatic way, coming back from 9-5 down to score 7 in the ninth to beat the Rays and salvage that series and snap their 10-game losing streak. Look, I think for me, yes, this was a win that this team desperately needed with everything that's gone on and such. Do I think they could start off like a 5, 6, or 7-game winning streak? I mean, sure, but they haven't given me. I know Tim Anderson is supposed to come back tomorrow, but I don't see it happening. But I think they benefit from two things. One, this is going to be the only trip the Rays are going to have this year here in Chicago. So they figured that let's try to get the game in, even though it's been raining. It was raining on and off, kind of like the same as, doing here the last few days, actually. And then also, too, I think the Rays didn't have a couple of their top relievers, so they weren't available. So I think that played a little bit of a part as well. That's probably the one thing that got exposed a little bit in this series was because their bullpen is such, we'll get to that in a second, but I just feel like the Sox benefited from like a whole lot of things, and and good for them. They ended up taking advantage of it. Good for you. Good for y'all, White Sox. Good for y'all.
I'm gonna start backwards and come up to what happened yesterday. Saturday, it was an interesting day. Lance Lynn pitched his best game of the season. Of course, he lost to no-hit in the 7th. And of course, for you guys listening on our podcast at War Media Podcast, I'm wearing the Sox hockey jersey that they gave away 20,000 of them last Saturday. If you can see, Lakina, I don't know if you can see it, but they gave those away on Saturday. That's why it was a big crowd there. And I tweeted it out and I said, if the White Sox continue to lose outside of the promotional days, well, this continues as the White Sox fans will draw themselves to the ballpark if the White Sox continue to lose. Number 3, Luis Robert hit the first pitch of the game on Saturday. He claimed that he came up lame. The fans started booing because he didn't hustle up along the first base line. He could have beat out on the bad throw. It was said after the game that he ignored bench coach Charlie Montoya, who asked him, was he hurting? He did not give an answer. So Pedro Grifol did the right thing in the middle of the game. Sit your ass down. I'm putting in rookie right fielder Oscar Colas, and it all went there. So the communication problems between Luis Robert and bench coach Charlie Montoya and manager Pedro Grifol, and we all bought into the hype, Lakina, as far as Pedro Grifol being the manager that's going to hold players accountable. He did that on Saturday. Now, will this continue? We shall see, because I think unfortunately, another situation like this could be coming. Hopefully it doesn't happen again with Luis Robert, but we'll see. But as far as Saturday was concerned, after Lance Lynn gave up that solo home run, everything went to hell in the handbasket afterwards. And for the Sox, in every way that you could lose a ball game like that, everything that could go wrong went wrong on Saturday. But of course, yesterday they should have had that game in the bag originally, but the Tampa Bay Rays scored 5 runs in the top of the 8th, and of course, as you mentioned, Lakina, with the Sox trailing 9-5 in the 9th inning, they come back to win 12-9. Did you know, Lakina, that this is the first time the White Sox have won a game going into the 9th inning trailing by 4 runs or more? The first time they had done that since 2007. Yeah, and you know how bad that season was.
Yeah, that was a so I ended up being the only highlight for that season. So unfortunately, this might not be a good thing for the Sox. But again, like I said, nice win by them. And look, I think if this is good, this was a win that they needed. And look, I guess the baseball gods can be good to you once in a while. So like I said, they got series against Minnesota starting tomorrow. Tim Anderson will be back. We'll see if they can put together a little bit of a run here. I still think they can't do it, but prove me wrong, White Sox. So we'll see what happens with that. Now going
I'm going to ask you
going
about Luis Robert. How did you think that
the
Pedro
Luis
Grifol
Robert thing,
handled
look,
that situation?
I mean, yeah, I think that whole thing, I think, was just a little bit silly. I think, look, he would have been better off just pretending he got hurt. His hamstring was bothering him and whatnot. That's why he didn't want to, hot dog it or whatever. I think he would have been out anyway. So I'm not gonna make a big, federal case out of it. So I
Okay.
want to, I want to move on from that because I'm like, look, I think he's frustrated as long as everyone else on that team. So it is what it is with that. Now going to the north side against the Cubs, as listed Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown, with you. The Marlins sweep the Cubs. Now, I guess the one bright side is that Cody Bellinger did have a solid showing during that series. He is now batting 300 with a 0.986 OPS, and then in the first 24 games. So you're starting to see a little bit of the Cody Bellinger that you saw when he was with the Dodgers a few years ago. Now, fortunately, he was one of the few bright spots for them, and Luis Arias, who has it for the cycle for the Marlins. He's hitting a .438, and that's the highest batting average by any player through April. He was a big reason why the Marlins swept the Cubs. So they really didn't have too much of an answer for him. I think their pitching was a little bit of a struggle. You're starting to see a little bit of that, the lack of, not necessarily the lack of talent, but I think it's just that, okay, you kind of got knocked back to reality a little bit. Nico Horner, didn't have his best series. He struck out 3 times yesterday. They still have their chances of winning a couple of those games. The pitch just couldn't do it for them. So I'm not too worried about the Cubs just yet. Like I said, they still got a pretty solid record going into May. I just, like I said, I think might be like, we'll see where the Marlins are in about a month. They may have to trade a couple of those guys. So, but what do you think about the Cubs this weekend?
It was more about the bullpen, to be honest with you. They did get quality starts on Friday from Marcus Stroman and yesterday from Justin Steele. The offense just couldn't pull out of it to win those games. Of course, the game on Saturday, they got so far behind. They nearly came back and won, but they just ran out of time. The Cubs still continue to be competitive, Lakina, and the bullpen continues to struggle, and they can't find a solid closer. But they continue to be competitive, and the bullpen keeps treading water at best. That's going to be a problem. Hopefully, GM Jed Hoyer and GM Carter Hawkins can find some bullpen help around the trade deadline. But in the meantime, between times, somebody needs to step up in that bullpen for the Cubs. A couple of guys, because they're getting some very good starting pitching. Cal Hendricks isn't back yet, so let's see what they do as far as the bullpen is concerned. We mentioned Zaya Suzuki is back. Hopefully he'll get his feet underneath him soon, and the offense continues to hit. And you mentioned Cody Bellinger. He had 2 home runs in the series, including one yesterday to help them get back in the game. But it's all about this. First, it all starts with that starting pitching for the Cubs, and you get compromise on your offense. This is how this team operates. The thing that needs to be fixed is that bullpen.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the reasons why they lost a couple. Well, the last 2, the first one was just they just the 7-4 loss on Friday. I think they just really didn't have it on Friday. So like I said, I think the back end of that rotation. I know Killian did not have his best start on Friday. That's kind of what led to that 7-4 win for the Marlins. So like I said, I think once Hendricks is back, I think he's supposed to come back within the next couple of weeks. We'll see where he's at, by then. Hopefully, get a couple of games and maybe a couple of rehab starts in down in AAA. Maybe we can see a little bit of that. They can kind of salvage some of that for that pitching. But yeah, that middle relief, I think I'm a little bit worried about because I kind of feel like this is sort of like they need to kind of figure that out and such. So I think, well, considering where the Cubs are, look, they're still 14 and 13. So that would be, interesting, but we'll see what happens with that. So I'm kind of like I'm not like freaking out about the Cubs. They're still 14 and 13. Consider like where people thought they would be, this season so far. I think they're kind of ahead of schedule. So we'll see if they can win and if they can respond to that. So what caught your eye in baseball this weekend?
Well, a couple things. Aaron Judge is now injured as the Texas Rangers, who lost Jacob deGrom on Friday, who's also injured now on the 15-day injured list for the Rangers. The Rangers smashed the New York Yankees to sweep them in 3 straight games. And the Mexico series saw the San Diego Padres sweep the 2-game series over the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah, I think weren't there like a lot of runs scored in that Friday game. I think there was like
the Saturday game, yes.
That Saturday game, that 10 home run count. I
Mhm.
think they're like 3 pairs of back-to-back home runs in the first few innings. So the folks that are in Mexico City got a little bit of a show there. The Padres, they're kind of back in it in the chase. So that's going to be interesting. We'll see in the NL West, but just want to say about again Drew Maggi. Of course, he had his first RBI, so I think that was he had a single and a double. He went 2 for 2 in that series against the Nationals. So I'm kind of like liking this story a lot. We'll see if we see more of him. I think this is going to be like one of those stories. Like hopefully this will show folks that they ended up. I think they ended up losing the series. I think the Pirates ended up losing that series to the Nationals, I believe, and that's who the Cubs play next. So that
Mhm.
should be an interesting series too. Nonetheless, we'll get to that in a second. But I mean, the whole thing with the Yankees. I mean, being outscored. I think they were outscored like 24-3 or 24-7 or something like that in that weekend series against the Rangers that they were swept. So and now Judge is hurt. We'll see how long he's going to be gone, so they can't afford to lose him. Now, on the flip side for Philly, Bryce Harper will be back this week after winning 2 out of 3 against the Astros, and also too, I think they've won like 7 of their last like last 9 games. So after a little bit of a slow start, so now they're starting to kind of pick it up a little bit. Of course, now you got Bryce Harper's going to be back. Sooner to expect. I know Eduardo Escobar has been like one of the guys that kind of like led the charge there. So I'm looking forward to see this. Like I said, this is going to be interesting with the Phillies because I feel like the Phillies could be not Escobar, but I'm still talking about that great series. But it's going to be interesting to see what it's good with the Phillies especially because I feel like they're starting to heat up a little bit.
Yeah, they're taking advantage right now. The Mets are down. I know they're playing right now against the Braves, and they're trailing 6-1 in the makeup game from yesterday. But the Mets are struggling right now. I know Max Scherzer, he's supposed to be coming off their suspension list tomorrow, I believe, to make his start, if I'm not mistaken. So the Mets are struggling right now. The Braves are hot. The surprising Marlins are up there. We just talked about what they did against the Cubs over the weekend. So Philadelphia is making their move. So this NL East is going to be surprisingly more competitive than what people think. So Philadelphia has it on the roll right now. Let's see if they can keep it going.
Should be interesting. That whole NL East, I should say, is going to be very interesting. It's going to be interesting who kind of like survival because even the Nationals aren't that bad. So I know they only won 10, but they're actually not that bad themselves. So I'm interested to see how they're going to go. Well, the Marlins, I think the Marlins are going to come back to earth a little bit. They did last year, so we'll see. And like I said, some of those players might be gone by the trade deadline, so we'll just see what happens there. Arizona's still hanging on, but the Dodgers. Look at the Dodgers; they've won 3 in a row. So I'm looking forward to see are we gonna everyone's starting to kind of get together a little bit. I know the Cardinals are struggling, but still they swept them. So that's we can't help but do that. So yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting to see what they do because guys have been in and out because of paternity leave and such. So those guys are starting to come back. I know Mookie Betts was one of those players. So I'm looking to see, let's see that everyone's back. Everyone's starting to find their groove a little bit. So I'm looking at I'm just see that we're going to see the Dodgers team we've been seeing now that everyone's started kind of getting used to each other, all the new players and such.
Back to the American League, Lakina. Your Seattle Mariners avoided a sweep yesterday north of the border in Toronto. They taped the series finale 10-8 after losing on Saturday 1-0 in 10.
Yeah, that was a tough loss for them, and that 1-0 loss. But yeah, I'm glad they were able to salvage a win. So I didn't want to see a sweep, so I'm glad for that. Toronto's starting to get together a little bit. Minnesota,
They crushed Kansas City next.
I know they lost to I know they beat Kansas City, but even still, I mean, I think look, still you can't help who you're playing because you're going to be playing some not so good teams in this. So it is what it is. Now Oakland, I know they got approved for the new stadium for Vegas. Jesus, they had 20 games played in April without a win by a starting pitcher. And I know it's not funny, but I just feel for those A's fans because the Oakland, they've won World Series, they've had great players. Now they've only won 7 games. I think that, especially since 28 of those games they were more kind of like in the back end of won like eighth inning or later. It wasn't like they've won by a starter. So It's just like, ugh, what can you do if you're an Athletics fan at this point? I feel for the people in Oakland. I really do.
Yeah, White Sox fans talking about Jerry Reinsdorf sell the team, which is not going to happen anytime soon. If you're an Oakland A's fan, you should be more frustrated than a White Sox fan right now, because look where they remember that stadium that they still playing now. They messed that up when they moved the Oakland Raiders back in there back in 1995. They made that now a messed up parking garage. It's just so sad. Next to Tampa Bay, they play in one of the worst stadiums in baseball. Now their fans are still passionate, but the ballparks they play in is just crap, and those fans don't deserve that.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, the A's fans. They, look, to those A's fans that have been around, that have been with the team through all this weirdness. I feel like I feel for those folks, because like I said, the A's have had a historic they're sort of franchise. So now that they're playing in such a crappy ballpark, and now they don't get a lot of folks there as it is. So it's just I it's just like sad, but it's very sad to see. Now, one team that we have not talked about that has been playing very well is the Baltimore Orioles. They're 19-9 as this recording. I know they've beaten Detroit. That they lost. They beat Detroit. I think it was a strange series, because it was a doubleheader. Then it got to postpone, and then they had to do another doubleheader, and now they won 3 out of 4 against Detroit, but still. They've been pretty much on a roll lately, so I like what Baltimore looked like. The Baltimore was right there to the last couple months of the season last year. So I don't think people should be surprised at where Baltimore is at right now.
Yeah, they had the offense led by Adley Rutschman and Cedric Mullins who anchors the top of that lineup. So you're going to get some hitting from those guys. But I want to see what their pitching does. They're starting pitching in their bullpen, because especially their starting pitching, it was kind of shaky at best last year. I want to see if their starting pitching improves, because you have the offense can get it back up from your starting rotation.
That's another thing too. Yeah, that was the weakness last year too, was their pitching. So hopefully they can figure that out as well. Is that all? Is there anything else that caught your eye?
The Brewers, who lead the NL Central, they take 2 out of 3 from Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, and the Anaheim Angels over the weekend in American Family Field.
American Family Insurance. Okay, sorry about that. I'll drink the stick in my head every time. But yeah, I mean, look. I think, like I said, Milwaukee, I think they're starting to kind of get going a little bit. We'll see how Pittsburgh. I don't think Pittsburgh. Now that we're in May, I know they're 20-9 right now. They're just behind the Rays for the best record in baseball, but I just don't think they're gonna be. I know they won 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, but they're starting to kind of find their groove a little bit. So I just don't think that they're going to be up there. I mean, they might be competing for a wild card spot, but I just don't see them getting in that division. I think the Brewers are starting to kind of get going, so we'll see what happens with that. Now, going into the schedule for this week, get my schedule up here. I know that they're doing a doubleheader with the Braves and the Mets. One of those games on MLB Network right now is between the Mets are up 1-0. Of course, they're going to have the game right after that. The Cubs will try to get that series against the Marlins out of their mouth. They start a 3-gamer with the Nationals, 6:05. First pitch there. Cleveland against the now struggling Yankees. Aaron Judge's going to be out for a while.
Yeah, both teams struggling. Cleveland struggled in Boston over the weekend.
Speaking of Boston, they played Toronto. It should be they've had some fun matchups in recent years. So
yeah, remember Toronto beat them in Fenway a couple of years ago, like 25-4 or something like that.
Yeah, that was brutal. San Francisco and Houston. That should be an interesting series. And Cincinnati and San Diego, and Philadelphia and the Dodgers. That should be a fun series. Yeah, so that's your schedule for Monday. For some stories are just some series are just finishing up, and the other series are just starting.
Yeah, the other series will be starting this week. Tomorrow, of course, we'll have the Minnesota Twins traveling to Chicago to take on the White Sox. You'll have the Atlanta Braves going to Miami to take on the Marlins in the NL East battle. Interleague series, we'll have the New York Mets after today's doubleheader with the Braves. They'll travel to Detroit to face the Tigers. Speaking of quote-unquote World Series preview this year, I doubt it, but record-wise, you'll have Pittsburgh at Tampa Bay. That should be an interesting one.
Yeah, it should be a fun series still.
And then you have Baltimore at Kansas City and Anaheim at St. Louis. And Diamondbacks and the Rangers in the other interleague series, Seattle at Oakland, Milwaukee at Colorado, and then, of course, Cincinnati and San Diego. So those are the rest of the series that will start tomorrow for this week.
So there'll be some fun series coming up. Like I said, I don't know about the Pirates and the Rays being the. I know that those two have the best records right now, but I just don't see it being the whole World Series preview. But
I don't see it either.
Yeah, well, yeah, but look, there's still a lot of baseball to be played. We're only about a little over a month in, and we're now in May, so a lot can happen in May. So we'll see if these teams are, going to be up there. But still, should be a fun series nonetheless. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 coming up. We've got basketball, of course, a big, performance, a historic performance, I should say, from Steph Curry. Also, to another historic performance from Jimmy Butler in a bum ankle as the Heat steal Game 1 against the Knicks. And a couple other series to, as we say, the Suns are going to have to shoot better in general. And some big upsets in the NHL playoffs. So we're going to have a new Stanley Cup champion. We'll talk about that. And also to an old school TV Monday. Looking forward to that one. So a lot to do still in hour number 2, Second City Sports on Sports Show Chicago. We got basketball talk coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean,
do you know that you're in my lane?
No, not at all.
Are you not paying attention? Are you texting?
I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6.
It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention.
I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Monday edition, the first show for the month of May. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Nikki McGee, which is she. I am City Brownhead. That's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter and Kiosk McGee on the IG.
We have exactly 57 minutes left or so in this Fabulous program we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you want to hit us up in the comments section, you could do so. at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, Sid. NBA playoff time! Yay!
Yay!
We actually had some good games over the weekend. We'll start with the big one here, the performance that everyone is talking about. As the Warriors, with their experience, take Game 7 against Sacramento, 120-100. Steph had a 50-piece, a 50-point, which is I think that's the highest by a Game 7 by any player in a Game 7 in playoff history. And Calvin Looney suddenly looked like Dennis Rodman. I think that's like everybody, because he had some big rebounds in that third quarter that kind of sealed the deal for the Warriors. He had 21 rebounds. No, I'm not making that up. He had 21 rebounds in addition to 11 points. Of course, Klay Thompson kicked in with 16. Just a really great, like, this is where, like I said, the experience is sort of like what was too much for the Kings in the end. So you saw what happened. So what do you think? Because just the fact that, and look, we want to say age. I think he'll be 36 in October. I'm talking about Steph.
He doesn't look it.
Well, he's not shooting like it either, right? I mean, or something. But yeah, I mean, the fact that he's still doing this at his age. I mean, he's the second player at 35 or older to score 200 points in a playoff series, or more than 200 points at least. And since MJ did it back in '98 in both the conference finals and the NBA finals, he just did this in the first round. So I can only see what's going to happen. We'll get to the Warriors Lakers series in a second. But what do you think about the Steph's performance?
It was a historic performance. He turned on the Jets, especially in that second half, where the Warriors sensed to kill. Sacramento just didn't have enough scoring to combat Steph Curry. They couldn't stop him in the paint. They couldn't stop him from shooting. And Steph just got on one of those rolls. Unfortunately, that happens. It was a tight first half. Sacramento, they had to lead a few times. I think they had to lead at halftime by a couple of points, but the Warriors came out more focused out of their locker room. They locked down defensively. Sabonis had 22 points for the whole game. He was only 2 or 6 from the free throw line. That's not going to get it done. Although he should have been more aggressive. Klay Thompson, as you mentioned, had some big baskets. Him and Andrew Wiggins both combined for 35 points. I thought that was huge. You mentioned Kevon Looney. Outside of Game 6, those last 2 games in Sacramento, the Warriors dominated the Kings inside, especially defensively.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the things. I mean, they had to. I know Draymond made a couple of big steals and big rebounds and such, and just like I said, I think the experience kind of showed a lot, and I think this is sort of like, especially in the playoffs, this is sort of like when the experience shine through. Like, these guys know what it takes to win. I don't think we know the Kings aren't there yet. We'll see if they'll be back next season. I think the ceiling is high. Hopefully, this wasn't just a flash in the pan for them. But I know that De'Aaron Fox, another finger, had to have been bothering him. He only scored 16 points. He was like 3 for 10 from 3. That's not going to do it. You can kind of tell that finger was bothering him. I know Monk struggled. Harrison Barnes, we won't go there. But just Kevin Huerter, could have done a little bit more. He was only 2 for 8 from the field, only 7 points. Just it just wasn't there for the Kings. And like I said, look, the Kings had a great season. Look, they did better than they kind of came out of nowhere. And they did better than a lot of folks suspected. I mean, they haven't done this well in years, even when they were in Rochester. Remember the Rochester Kings? Sid, remember that? Like,
yeah, before they moved to Cincinnati and Oscar Robertson showed up.
Yeah. Well, we're not that old, folks, we promise. But well, look, I think the Kings have nothing to be ashamed. I know Mike Brown's already won Coach of the Year, so the future looks bright. Hopefully, like I said, they can build on this for next season.
Yeah, and just looking at the final statistics, the Kings did not shoot the ball well, only 25% for 3, 37% overall. That's not going to get it done. And the Golden State Warriors out-rebounded the Kings by 6, 55-49. So, as you mentioned, with Kevon Looney grabbing 21 of those boards, that definitely gave the Warriors the edge.
Definitely 21 boards. That's like what Rodman did a lot during his playoff time. So yeah, nice move for the Warriors. They play the Lakers. We'll get to that series preview. We'll get to their clinching game in a second. But the other game from last night, the Heat, come back and beat the Knicks 108-101. Jimmy Buckets again had 25 points. Got a little banged up with that left ankle injury. We'll see what happens. There hasn't really been many updates as far as I know. At least so I know I don't, Sid. But Gabe Vincent had 20 points, which is one of definitely a season high for him. Bam kicked in with 16 points. Just a really solid. And Kevin Love, Kevin Love had some nice big buckets and also
Mm.
some big rebounds and assists too. So a little bit of the old Kevin Love from when he was in Cleveland. That Kevin Love. So a little
Mhm.
bit of that. So on the flip side for New York, I mean, Obi Toppin had 18 points. Jalen Brunson had 25. RJ Barrett had 20. Had a nice first half. Just couldn't really build on that. He missed some big shots too. Just the experience of the Heat. Remember they were just in the finals in the bubble a few years ago, so they know what it takes to build. So we'll see what happens. I know it's just one game, but I know people were already kind of like pissing us. It's gonna be a 4 or 5 game series win for the Knicks. Heat saying not so fast.
Well, Julius Randle didn't play yesterday either. His stats for game 2 tomorrow is up in the air. But if you paid attention to what the Miami Heat did to the Knicks in the second half, they packed in the paint and they forced the Knicks to shoot from the outside, and it worked because the Knicks, they were shooting the ball all over the place in the first half, but they couldn't do it in the second half. It was the opposite for the Heat. They picked up the tempo in the second half as far as offensively is concerned. For the game, Miami shot the ball at a 42% rate. The Knicks had 47%, but that 3-point shooting from the Knicks, and especially in that second half, was terrible. The Knicks shot it at 20% for the game. That's just not going to get it done. And as far as the rebounding was concerned, Miami got out rebounded by 11, but it was the turnovers and there was some questionable calls too. We don't know if we'll get into that deeply, but Miami benefited from those calls. They took advantage of it, especially from the free throw line. But in the turnovers, in the turnover department, which I thought was key, Miami only had 9. The Knicks had 13.
Yeah, that's not going to do it for it. And I know that Julius Randle wasn't there, but remember they had their struggles too when Randle was there. I'm talking about the Knicks against the Heat this year, so their defense can definitely be stifling to him. So we'll see if he'll come back in game 2. But going back towards Saturday, yeah, this was. I turned this game off after halftime. Shout out to our buddy Spiro Diaz, who's calling this series for TNT. But the Nuggets just hammered the Suns 125-107. 9 for 20, 7 for 23 for 3-point race. The Suns were. That's not going to win it for you. And look, I know Jokic had a double, 24 and 19. Jamal Murray had 34, led the way there for the Nuggets. Aaron Gordon had 23. Just like I said, they just outshot the Suns. Talking about the Nuggets did. So I still have the Suns in 7. I'm gonna stick with that, but they need to shoot better in general, not just from the field, but from the 3-point line. 20% or 30%, I should say, from the three. That's not gonna. You're not gonna win series like that.
What did we say on Friday, Lakina? We said that these 3 players you need to watch out for this series will have an impact on who moves on to the Western Conference Finals. For Phoenix, you had DeAndre Ayton. For Denver, I had Bruce Brown and Aaron Gordon. Now, Aaron Gordon did this thing on Saturday. We'll see if we can keep it up for game 2 tonight. For Phoenix, as you mentioned, they need to shoot the ball better, and they need someone to help out Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Like you said, you can't have Kevin Durant bail you out in every tough situation because I know he welcomes that challenge, but one person will get tired of carrying the load, and fatigue will play a factor. You do not want that to you don't want that to happen, especially to a superstar like Kevin Durant. So it's going to be a complete team effort tonight for Phoenix if they want to steal game 2. Like you said, DeAndre Ayton most show up and show out. We'll see what Chris Paul can give you, and Devin Booker. I expect him to score another 25 or so more points tonight.
And shoot better from the 3-point range. I know that he misses only 3-point attempts, but I know he can shoot the 3. Guys like Cam Payne, he needs to step up. I know Aiden needs to step up too. Like I said, we're starting to see like a little bit more depth. I know a lot of these guys played garbage minutes because the game was already a blowout, but guys like Tony Craig and Cam Payne. I mean, those guys really need to step up and help out. Look, KD's not young anymore, so I think I know he welcomes being able to shoot and carry the team, but he just doesn't have the the health anymore. He's getting older. Plus, he's still recovering from an injury. So I'm kind of like at that point where I'm kind of like, look, someone needs to step up and help out both him and Booker. So we'll see what happens. They play tonight, so yeah, we'll see.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakinya here with you, hanging out on a Monday afternoon. This is our first show for the month of May as we talk NBA playoffs. Lakina, we'll get into the preview of this other Western Conference series coming up in a bit. But the Los Angeles Lakers last Friday, they defeated the Memphis Grizzlies, eliminated them in 6 games, 125-85. Lakina, the Grizzlies had a good season, but it was marred by the John Morant off the field foolishness, Dylan Brooks talking trash. And I know that we all thought that the Memphis Grizzlies were an upcoming team in the NBA. They still may be, but they needed attitude check. They didn't show up on Friday. I heard some people comment this morning about them laughing on the bench, even though they were getting their butts handed in on Friday. It's just the image-wise, it's just a bad look for the Memphis Grizzlies. On the flip side for the Lakers, D'Angelo Russell, as I said on Friday, he need to step up and help out LeBron and Anthony Davis. D'Angelo Russell had a team high, 31 points for LA.
Yeah, and I think that was, if you saw LeBron's tweet after, I think it was on Saturday, I think you could tell he was holding that. He held that tweet in the drafts for a little bit. So that was go back to his Twitter account. You'll see what I'm talking about.
You don't say.
But, but when you hear all the comments that the Josh saying, "Oh, I'm fine in the West." You got Desmond Bain saying, "Hey, we're going to Game 7." And Dylan Brooks, some of the stuff he said, he didn't even talk to the media afterwards. He left. So
people show you who they are when the chips are down.
Yep. So it's hard to believe this is like this is like the largest series clinching game win by a LeBron James led team. Which is crazy. I think the previous was the 35-point win over the Raptors in the 2018 Eastern Conference semis. Just I'm just like, wow, it was a laugher by midway through the third quarter. You thought, okay, yeah, this is it. Well, hey, Dylan Brooks, you got your 40 piece. I mean, you lost by 40. But you got your 40
it's easy to patch your stats when the game is already in hand.
Well, yeah, 31 points was, I think, a season high for D'Angelo Russell. So made some big shots. He'll hit some big threes. LeBron really didn't do. I don't want to say he didn't do too much, but he had 22 points. But he didn't really have to do too much. I think because he got some nice showing for Russell. Austin Reeves had a solid game too. He had 11 points. So just a really solid win in the book. LeBron and AD didn't even play in the fourth. So it just shows you how. How they knew the game was already in hand there. But look, like I said, I think the Lakers, just showed that the Memphis Grizzlies are not ready. They're not ready for prime time. I don't know if it's because they need a change in coaching. Not to say that Taylor Hawkins doesn't do a great job, but I just think that they need a veteran coach to sort of reel those guys in and say, hey, look, you guys are not there yet. Yeah, you're an up and comer, but look, I think LeBron just showed y'all that y'all not ready for the big leagues yet.
Yeah, and that's what that series was all about for the Los Angeles Lakers and the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, for the Los Angeles Lakers, their role players need to step up. Like I said, you don't want to have LeBron James carrying you because we'll get into this preview of this series now as the Lakers will face the Golden State Warriors. I believe that series starts tomorrow night, Lakina, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so the Lakers will go to Golden State to take on the Warriors tomorrow night for Game 1 of that Western Conference semifinal series. Lakina, I think this series will come down to defensive rebounding in secondary scoring. Anthony Davis, we saw what he could do in the wins that the Lakers had in that series against Memphis, and the losses he disappeared. He needs to be more consistent, especially against a better front line and Kevon Looney, Draymond Green, those guys for the Golden State Warriors. Anthony Davis must show up and show out. And for the other guys like Dennis Schroeder, Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, keep that momentum going. That's what got you by the Memphis Grizzlies series. And you don't want to let LeBron James carry you, because if you do, you're in trouble. That means the other guys are not stepping in, stepping up.
Well, and it's Taylor Jenkins is a coach for the Grizzlies. I want to clean that up. But look, as far as people want to make a big deal about Steph versus LeBron. Yes, Steph has a better record than LeBron. He's 15-7 against LeBron in playoff series. But I think, like you said, I think the key is going to be the secondary guys. After the top 3 guys, after Steph and Clay, and then of course AD and LeBron, who's going to step up? Will it be the Austin Reeves and Rory Nakamura? Will it be Draymond? Kevon Looney? The guys like that, Jordan Poole? So like I said, it's really going to depend on who's going to. This is really going to be, yes, of course, those 4 that I mentioned are going to be, sort of they're going to have the headlines, but after that, it's really going to be the supporting guys. I think that's going to be the key. And it should be a fun series.
Yeah, it should be a fun series. So on the flip side for Golden State, I'm looking at not just Kevon Looney, but I'm really looking at Andrew Wiggins. Let's see what he does. in the spot now, because he had his moments, especially yesterday as the Warriors closed out the Sacramento Kings on the road in Game 7. I'm looking for Andrew Wiggins. Hopefully he can average more than 15 points a game coming off the bench. I think that's going to be key for Golden State. And also, too, what about Gary Payton II? Can he bring that defensive intensity off the bench like he did last year on the way with the Warriors on their way to the title?
So, like I said, like you said, I think this is going to be really going to be the secondary guys who steps up. I mean, who could hit big shots? Coach who could be a big part too. I know this is Steve Kerr's first rodeo. Darvin Ham, I know he's been do this as an assistant, but it's going to be his first time as a head coach. So we just see how they're going to maneuver all of that. So. And like I said, it's going to be very interesting. Look, these two teams have a lot of history, playing together playing against each other this year in the regular season. So I don't expect it to be any different in the playoffs. So yeah, this should be a very interesting series, a very fun series, an entertaining series. But like I said, it's going to be really the secondary guys that's going to be the key.
Yeah, and also too, what's going to be key in this series is rebounding and 3-point shooting. Now, the Lakers do not have the great shooters on their roster, even though they have a better roster around LeBron. But I think it's going to come down to those two factors: the 3-point shooting and in rebounding. Whoever wins the categories in those, has the advantage in those two categories will win this series.
Well, yeah, because we know Steph. Well, can Steph keep up what he's been doing? Like I said, he's with the only being every other day in these series in between games now. It's really going to be could fatigue be an issue too for some of these older guys. So. I don't know. Like I said, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, it's going to be.
That's why I'm focusing on Andrew Wiggins for the Warriors.
And Jordan,
and then Klay Thompson second.
Yeah, Jordan Poole and those guys. Also, we'll see if Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell. We're going to see D'Angelo Russell that we saw in that Friday blowout against the Grizzlies. We need to see more of that the Lakers do. So, like I said, it's going to be interesting. Though this series could be a toss. I know some people already said that the Warriors are going to play like in 6 or 7, but I feel like you said, if those guys step up, they can make the series very interesting.
Yeah, and as I said before, on the flip side for the Lakers, Anthony Davis must show up and show out and be consistent however long this series can go. If he does that, this could be easily a 7-game series, at least go to 7 games. But I think the Warriors are just they had a little bit more talent on paper. I think the Lakers will show up in this series, but I think the Warriors have just a little bit more to get back. I'm picking the Warriors in 6, but I would not be surprised if we win 7.
All right, another series that will start tonight on the Eastern Conference side. You got Philadelphia and Boston. It looks like Joel Embiid will not play. Apparently, that knee injury is a little bit serious than was first thought. It's a grade 1 sprain, so he might miss. There was no update yet, but he was seen, practicing. Ali LaForce does a great job covering Nimby for TNT. She said that apparently the media was kicked out of practice after Embiid started shooting. So she can't say anything. She couldn't say whether or not he looked good or not. No one in the media can because they were kicked out. So we just see how
teams hiding things and controlling the message. That's what that is.
Yeah, probably wants to keep everybody guessing to see whether or not he plays. So which is probably very smart by Doc Rivers. So I think for me in this key here, like I said, of course, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. We all know about those two. If Embiid can't play tonight, the Sixers need another big performance from Tyrese Maxey. So I think that's going to be the real key here, especially if Embiid can't play. Harden needs to get his shots, and such. Like I said, Maxey and all the supporting players for the Sixers need to kind of step up to a little bit. For the Celtics, I think it's going to be about the rebounding inside. Now, they may not have to worry about Embiid, at least for this game. So their big guys are going to have to step up to in the inside and the interior. So that's going to be an up front and in the paint too, I should say. So it's going to be really key here. And I think this is going to be really the key in this series. I had the Sixers in 6, but again, I think it's really going to depend on Embiid's health. It's like the knee is going to be an issue for him the rest of the playoffs.
I'll go opposite with you, Lakin. I had Boston in 6 because of the injury to Joel Embiid. Now, Embiid misses more than tonight's game 1, then it's definitely going to be a problem for Philadelphia. But I'm looking at it like this. For Philadelphia, you mentioned James Harden, you mentioned Tyrese Maxey. What about Tobias Harris? He needs to start shooting the ball a little bit more, especially from the outside. I think he can give a big lift for the Philadelphia 76ers. On the flip side for Boston, we'll see what Al Horford does. Remember, he had that foul on youth in that Game 1 performance last year in the finals against Golden State. We'll see what he does, especially tonight without Joel Embiid playing. Of course, you mentioned Jaylen Brown. Don't forget about Marcus Smart, RP Tom Heinsohn. Marcus Smart, who's the reigning Defensive Player of the Year. He can get in your grill. So I like Boston there little bit more committed defensively than Philadelphia is. I think it's still going to be a very interesting game tonight. I think Boston will win, but if Embiid plays in game 2, I think Philadelphia still has a chance in that one. I still believe that this could potentially be a long series. I had Boston 6 out. Stick to that, but I think Joe Mazzulla, the head coach of the Celtics, he has those guys on a roll right now. I think they learned their lesson from the last couple of games in that Atlanta series that if they don't do the little things right, you may not survive in this series. Of course, Philadelphia is a way more better team than Atlanta, but for Boston, you just got to pay attention to the details, and they do, especially defensively.
Well, yeah, and I think with the 3-point range, that's going to be the key here. I think in this series for the Celtics, they really didn't. They shot the ball okay, but in that last game, but then that loss to Atlanta, they didn't shoot the ball well. So if you can force them to make some tough shots, they can make it interesting. We'll see if guys like PJ Tucker for the Sixers, especially if Embiid's not going to be able to play, he's doubtful. George Niang, maybe he needs to step it up a little bit. So they've got guys there. So I'm wanting to see what happens with that, especially if, like I said, if Embiid looks like he's going to be able to play tonight. The Celtics. I mean, like I said, I think Grant Williams. Let's see him get the ball a little bit more. Al Horford, I know he's had a fountain of youth, but like I said, with the schedule set up now, we'll see if he can kind of be that, that guy had that little flash in the pan, 25, 12 rebound performances that we saw in that series against the Hawks. So like I said, I think both these teams are pretty evenly matched. So like I said, that need for Embiid could be an issue. So we'll see. But like I said, it's really going to depend on again, same thing with the Warriors and the Lakers series. It's going to be who's the secondary after the top guys. Who are going to be the secondary guys are going to step up. So we'll see. It's good. The coach can also be a factor too. You never know.
We didn't even mention this guy's name yet, Lakini. If you did, I apologize. But Jason Tatum for the Boston Celtics, their superstar. What do you expect out of him in this series? Do you think that Philadelphia will focus on him heavily, or just shut down some of his supporting castmates?
It really depends. I think Tatum. I think I might have mentioned Tatum. I think I might have said it in passing. But I think, look, I think same thing with them. I think they may not worry about Tatum and Brown because they know that they're going to get their shots. It's really going to depend on them have their secondary guys. Make it depend on Brown and Tatum the most and see what happens. And I think that's probably how Doc Rivers is going to play it. Same thing, I'm sure Joe Mazzulla is going to do the same thing with the Sixers. I mean, especially with Embiid, being he won't play game 1. But after that, I mean, Harden, Tobias Harris, I mean, they're really, and also Tyrese Maxey, who's going to be able to step up. So if they can kind of tame Harden, that they don't really have much scoring after that unless their secondary guys get step up. So it's going to be an interesting push-pull here.
Yeah, so the Celtics and the 76ers will kick off their series tonight at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's on TNT. And game 1 of that series in the second round of the Eastern Conference, as we'll kick off the schedule for this week for you guys. Following that game, it will be the Suns and the Denver Nuggets. Game 2 of that Western Conference second round. That's at 9 p.m. Chicago time. That's on TNT. Going to tomorrow's schedule, Tuesday, we will have game 2 of the Eastern Conference semifinal series between the New York Knicks and the Miami Heat. That's from Madison Square Garden. That's at 6:30 p.m. on TNT. And at 9 o'clock Chicago time on TNT, we'll have game 1 of the Western Conference second round between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Golden State Warriors. Wednesday's schedule looks like this.
You got Philadelphia and Boston in game 2. We'll see if Embiid will be back for that. That's at 7 o'clock. That's a lone game on TNT. And on Thursday, you got the game 2 of Lakers and Warriors. That's at 8 o'clock on ESPN. So you got a little bit of a focus type games of some of this stuff. So you want to worry about double headers and watching 3 or 4 games at once. So it'll be interesting to see how this will match up because I think, like I said, if the Lakers can steal a win in the Bay Area against the Warriors, if you're the Sixers, try to win one in Boston so they can kind of make these series interesting. So we'll see.
Yeah, especially for the Lakers. If they can steal game 1, they'll definitely set the tone for the series because we all know that the Warriors are fatigued from what happened yesterday. Lakers had an extra day off by wrapping up their series last Friday.
So it should be a fun series nonetheless. Now, our number 1, well, no, not our number 1. I was like I said, we're down to our last half. I know my mind's going here, but got a half hour left in the show. We're going to talk some hockey. We're going to do that hockey coming up next, as we're going to have a new Stanley Cup champion and a controversial goal that should have counted at the very least. But the Boston Bruins, they go bye. And also, we're going to preview some of the conference semifinals. We'll talk some sports media news, also some other stuff too that's happening around the sporting world, and also Old School TV Monday should be a lot of fun. Last half hour coming up next. Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Hockey talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Oh, Lakina at the controls, love it. Welcome back to our last segment of the show for today. For on the Second City Sports, the Monday edition, our first show for the month of May. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
Look, it's very catchy. I'm not gonna look. I don't. I'm not gonna insult you for going with the beat here. You follow me by Keita McGee on the Twitter and Akia's Go on the IG.
Yeah, we have less than a half hour left for this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments for us? You can always go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get the up on the screen for you. Let's do that hockey, Lakina. Before we get to the game sevens from last night, we'll get a couple of finals from Friday out the way as these series ended on Friday. Your Carolina Hurricanes defeated the New York Islanders in Long Island 2-1 in overtime to take this series in 6. And the Dallas Stars finally move on to the second round of the playoffs for the first time since the bubble year. They defeated the Minnesota Wild 4-1 on Friday to take that series in 6 games.
Yeah, that was I was so happy that that Carolina won and ended that series. I think the Islanders would have. I'm not gonna say the Islanders would have won Game 7 had there been one, but you don't want to push it, especially since we had a couple Game 7s, and we got one coming up tonight. So happy for that. Let's see another series, of course. What do you think? What do you think about that second series that you talked about? I mean, were you surprised that it went that direction?
What series are you talking about again?
This the last one that you mentioned.
Oh, Dallas.
Dallas, yeah, the Dallas series,
Dallas, Minnesota.
Minnesota,
Not really, because I know historically Dallas has had a trouble closing out first round series. But Minnesota, they had some good teams over the last few years. They just can't go over home, so I'm not too surprised there. So Dallas will end up playing an expansion team, which we'll get to in just a second, who won a Game 7 last night. But I want to get to this Game 7 that took place on Saturday. The Toronto Maple Leafs finally made it to the second round, courtesy of Austin Matthews with a game winner in overtime as Toronto, after blowing a chance in Game 5 the other night at home, they went into Tampa in Game 6 and finally exercised those demons to get out of the first round with a 2-1 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning.
First playoff series win for them since 2004. That's almost 7,000 days. So, nice. Ouch. I think, yeah, I know it's been that long. So I'm glad they won it because, like I said, I don't know if I'm not going to say that Tampa would have had Tampa won that game. Would they have gone to a Game 7? Would they? But no, I think if you're Toronto, look, just end the series in Tampa and just exercise those demons. So I'm glad they were able to do that. So. Look at this will be interesting though, but yeah, I'm really glad that they won. Just for the psyche of it, I know John Tavares. You saw the relief on his face. You saw his presser afterwards.
That whole team, the whole franchise.
Relief. Yeah, that whole everybody. Tavares. Look that whole. Look, I'm sure the city of Toronto is probably happy about this. Breathe a little bit of a collective sigh of relief as well. So, it's going to be interesting to see what we'll get to there, who they're going to play. Actually, they don't know who they're playing against right now, but I know Sheldon Keefe. I know he's been on the hot seat the last couple years for Toronto. So I'm glad he's been able to get that weight off his shoulders there.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting. But also too, the Edmonton, finished off their series against the Kings 5-4.
Yeah, those pesky Kings. Yep.
Yeah, right. But they were able to, it was back and forth for a little bit, but I think. Yeah, so but the Oilers did just enough to win the series, the game and the series. So not too surprised by this. I mean, look, Kailer Yamamoto had the game winner for the Oilers. I saw this game. Look, the Canes had their chances. They were able to make it interesting. They tied it. Phil did assault Shorty to make it a little bit interesting, but like I said, Yamamoto's game winner helped propel them in that series. So I think the Oilers really needed that, especially after what happened. We're going to talk about it in just a second, but like I said, a very good win for the Oilers.
Yeah, so congratulations to them as they move on in the second round to take on the Las Vegas Golden Knights. All right, Lakina, let's get to the 2 Game 7s that took place last night. We'll start off with the obvious one. The Florida Panthers upset the Boston Bruins in Game 7 at the Garden last night, 4-3 in overtime. The Panthers take this series in 7. Of course, on last Friday night, the Boston Bruins had a late lead, but they gave it up in the third period. And of course, yesterday, I think fatigue started to become a factor, and Florida took advantage of that. You notice those last 3 games, whenever the Bruins had a lapse defensively or they had a crucial turnover, the Panthers were able to take advantage of it. Now, I believe after Game 6, head coach Paul Maurice for Florida said, you got to enjoy these moments, especially going into the Game 7. He was right, because the pressure was off of Florida. No one expected them to force a Game 7, let alone barely win one game in this series.
You saw his press after Game 6. He looked very relaxed. So I think this is his first rodeo. I think he realized that, hey, look, no one expected us to force a Game 7. So no one's really expected to get this far. So they were able to kind of force it a little bit there, and just look, Carter Verhaeg, I think I got his name, Verhaeg, scored the game winner about just a little under 8.5 minutes into the 8.5 minutes into the overtime. Just stunned, just stunned silence at TF Garden. Just stunned silence. Stunned silence. Like it literally heard a pin drop after he scored that goal, that game winner. So just a utter, it is a failure. If you want to talk about Giannis, bring back Giannis' comments from last week. I'll get to what they have in common in a second. I'm talking about the Bucks and the Bruins, but they're the third team to they're the third team to lose lose their opening series in Game 7 after winning the President's Cup. Let's see here. They're also the second team in NHL history to blow a 3-1 lead as a President's Cup winner. Do you want to guess who was the first?
Ooh, no, I'm not on Google, so I'm not going to cheat. Who was the other team?
Yeah, the Capitals in 2010.
Oh, that's right, the Capitals in 2010. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. They lost to Montreal in the first round. Yes.
You got it. Yay!
No, they were supposed to have been them and the Blackhawks in the 2010 final, but that didn't happen.
I know. I wanted that so bad too.
Yeah.
Capitals. Darn you. I know. Well, Ovi was. I think he was injured a lot during that season, so I think that didn't help them too much there. But yeah, the Bruins and the Milwaukee Bucks, they had the best record in both the NHL and the NBA. They both lost in the first round. That's the second time that has happened with teams with the best record of both the NBA and the NHL lost in the first round. The Canucks and the Bulls did that in 2012. We remember that very well there with the 2012 Bulls. There actually are like the first. Well, all the major sports. I mean, you had the 2015, 2016 Warriors, of course, won 73 that year. And of course, LeBron and the Kyrie had something to do with that. And them not winning the championship. This is actually interesting. A lot of them compared to the 07 Patriots. You remember that, when 17-0. And of course, they met Eli and them, with the Giants, that Super Bowl. The 01 Mariners, remember that team, Sid? I mean, there were so many expectations for that team. Of course, they didn't even get out of the divisional round. So
they lost in the ALCS to the Yankees. Of course, they were playing on a bad job of 9/11. So they had that going for them as well.
Yep. So they actually are some good company. That's all I could say the Bruins fans. But this is just oof.
Do you think that's the worst show job in sports history? Because I think it's right up there. I don't think it's number one, but I think it's right up there. It's in a team picture, obviously.
It's in a team picture, yeah. It's in a team picture. I don't think it's like I know some people say, this is the worst, but you guys probably have never watched hockey before, so this is not the first time this happened. But yeah, I think it's definitely like in the top 10, top 12. I think I'm not gonna say it's the worst because we've seen worse. Sid, trust us, we've seen the worst. Yeah, so this is up there, but just brutal for Bruins. I don't know what to tell. I don't know what to tell Bruins fans. I mean, I feel bad for David Krejci, who had his first. He actually had his first Game 7 goal, a couple of goals, which I think it was his first. I think he played in Game 7. So, there wasn't enough. But unfortunately, I don't know. It just feels. Yeah, this was a failure, definitely. Especially a lot of people already. I feel bad for Bergeron. I feel bad for Frederick and Krejci and just everybody on that team. It's just and Tim and Coach Montgomery too. But we just see if he gets in the hot seat too. So that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see if anybody pays for that in the coming weeks and months ahead. Here's a couple things. ESPN won't get that Boston Rangers final. I know. I was looking forward to that too. It's not going to happen now. We'll get to the Rangers Devils Game 7 preview in just a second, but they won't get that now. Who's going to be the favorite now in the Eastern Conference? Despite what happens tonight with the Devils and the Rangers in Game 7, does this clearly open up the door for Toronto, or will your Carolina Hurricanes be that surprise team? It can happen. It can happen.
Look, I mean, with the Brewers being gone now, this definitely opens the door for all teams. Well, we'll get to the Devils and the Rangers and preview that in a second. But yeah, I feel like it definitely opens the door in that Eastern Conference side. So now going into the Western Conference Game 7 here, we're gonna have a new Stanley Cup champion. I don't think anybody saw this, so if you did, I want to I have some Apple stock to sell you. 2-1. The Kraken, they beat Colorado This is actually the Kraken I'm talking about. They're actually the first expansion, first AHL team to win their first ever series in franchise history against the defending champions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just there's really nothing you can say. I know Nathan McKinnon had a couple of goals, but actually the second goal that should have counted, but apparently I guess someone was offsides. That led to.
They should get rid of that rule.
That's a silly rule. That's a silly rule in general for I think for both hockey and soccer. I have my own troubles about that too. But look, a solid performance by the Kraken. 33 saves from Philip Grubar, and Gruber, I should say, and there really wasn't much. The shots on goal, I think, were the big key here, and especially in that third period. I mean, it was just like there wasn't really to me there wasn't enough urgency with the Avalanche. Like, guys, you're trailing at home. Like, I wanted that urgency. I didn't get it.
Yes, the Seattle Kraken are a good team. They're a physical team. They're not going to outrun you. They're going to outwork you, especially along the boards. And you could tell midway through that second period, and of course throughout that third period, they controlled the pace, and that's why Colorado could get their game going. So congratulations to the Kraken. They're moving on to the second round to play the Stars. But as far as Game 7 last night, from my opinion, was through midway through that second period on, Seattle controlled the pace. And that's what you look for come playoff time. You're not going to see a whole lot of scoring. And if you do, you're going to see them in bunches. It's not going to be spread out. So whenever you see a crack or a mistake or a breakdown, you better take advantage of it, because if you don't, it's going to be a long night for you.
Yeah, absolutely. This actually the Seattle Dallas. This is going to be the third time that the North Stars franchises will face each other. Will face a club making its Stanley Cup first Stanley Cup playoff appearance, and first time ever. And the other series was in 1960. I go back to 1968 when the club itself was in the playoffs for the first time. So little history making here. So like I said, that place in Seattle is going to be rocking. And I'm looking forward. That should be a fun series. So we'll get to that in a second. Now going to tonight's match, we got one more Game 7 for you guys. It's the Rangers and the Devils in Jersey. So I think we're going to be hearing from Patrick Kane today. I don't know why my mind started going that route, because we know he's done this before with the Blackhawks. I think he's going to be a big factor here for the Rangers tonight. We're going to be hearing him a lot. I don't know why I'm thinking that, but maybe it's just like the favoritism, and even for like the being a Kaner fan. But I really think we're going to be hearing his name a lot tonight.
Well, if you're a New York Rangers and a Rangers fan, you should be happy that you said that, because your superstar players they need to step up when it matters most. Also, too, Vladimir Tarasenko and Artemi Panarin, they need to be heard from as well, as far as the men in the blue sweaters. On the flip side, for the New Jersey Devils, of course, their goaltending has been solid 2 out of the last 3 games. Of course, Jack Hughes is there, and I think it's going to come down to goaltending, Lakina. To be honest with you, it's really going to come down to goaltending. I mean, for the Rangers, we said this the last couple of years, especially last year in that Eastern Conference Final Series against Tampa. When will they start scoring on a consistent basis? They claim they didn't have it last year, and rightfully so. You have announced the names that I just mentioned, so it's time for those guys to step up.
Like I said, Hughes controls the pace for the Devils. So, like I said, I think he's gonna need some help. So hopefully, someone will step up, help him out. Also, to the Rangers, like I said, I think you just mentioned. I think Tarasenko, the bread man himself. I think they really need to step up as well. It could come down to goaltending. I think. Look, that's been really the key to these last couple of games. So why wouldn't it be for Game 7? Could we see one of these goalies, stand on their heads? I mean, we'll see, but. Like I said, it's really going to depend on who controls the pace. If the Rangers control the pace early, I think they can, take control of this game. But the Devils are going to have the home crowd with them, so that potential is going to be rocking. So I'm wondering, could they control the pace and get the crowd into it? So, like I said, it's really going to depend on who controls the pace. Especially early on. That's going to be really the key in this Game 7 tonight.
I don't know if we're going to get a classic like we did back in 1994 in Madison Square Garden when the Rangers scored in overtime to knock the Devils out of the playoffs. Of course, to help the Devils win the cup that next year in that shortened season in 95. But the Rangers, they've been knocking on the door. It's time for the Stars to step up. And of course, your backs are against the wall. It's all or nothing. Is all for all the marbles. So we'll see what happens tonight. I'm picking the Rangers. I don't know about you, Lakina, but like you said, Patrick Kane, his name will be heard from. Hopefully, just to be on the right side of history.
Yeah, I think the Rangers too. I think it's gonna be like a 3-2 win for the Rangers. And look, I wonder if they're gonna be showing that '94 Game 7.
You know they
Of course,
will, especially
of
being
course,
on ESPN tonight. You know they will.
you know, our Messi is going to be lobbying for that too. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he and PK's too. But of course, he spent his last few years. He did spend playing with the Devils. I'm talking about Subban did. So
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, do they have a for a little dinner bet they're going? So who's going to win tonight? But this should be interesting. I'm sure the intermission is going to be very interesting on their front. Now on the Tuesday, you got Florida and Toronto. No one really, Toronto you probably kind of expected, but Florida maybe not. So like I said, I think it's going to be very interesting. I think Toronto. I hope they don't get caught ahead too much because they've got players on that squad. I'm talking about the Panthers. Matt Tkachuk. We know. Look, his dad did this a few times during the Stanley Cup.
Yes.
Carter Verhage, of course, to score that game winner. I think they're going to be the key for the Panthers to kind of like keep the Maple Leafs on their toes. Nylander, I think that's going to be he's going to be the key there. Also, Mitchell Marner. So. But I think it's gonna be the goaltending. If they can, goaltending can set the tone early. I think this could be an interesting series, though. Even though I know no one really expected this one.
Yeah, Sergei Grabowski, the former Columbus Blue Jacket goaltender, now with the Panthers. So he's definitely going to be a factor for the Panthers as the series goes along. You mentioned all the firepower from the Toronto Maple Leafs, Austin Matthews and John Tavares, the Angels won. So it's going to be a fun series. I have the Maple Leafs winning in 6. I won't be surprised if this goes 7, but it's going to be a highly competitive series. I think the Panthers can take game 1, especially with the momentum that like they had beating Boston last night on the road. They'll have to start this series in Toronto, of course, obviously on the road. But let's see if the Panthers can keep that momentum going. They have a great chance of stealing game 1. I give them a great shot to steal game 1. I have Toronto winning the series, but I think Florida has a great chance of stealing game 1 tomorrow.
I think they'll win one of those series, one of those games. I think in Toronto. I think, like you said, for the momentum, especially. But I think Toronto. I think they're laser. Not that they've gotten over that hump. Okay, now they know that. Okay, yeah, it's right there, especially with Boston being out. So I know they realize that. Okay, like let's stay laser focused here. Let's get it going now. Dallas and Seattle for this Western Conference second round. I think for me, this is going to be. The Kraken, look, yes, they're an expansion team, but they got players on there. They've got, Jared McCain and Vince Dunn, among others. I mean, this could be, I know he's been back and forth with the injury. Talking about McCain has, so we'll see if he's going to be good to go. Jason Richardson, of course, Jason Robertson, of course, as he goes, so does Dallas. So I think it's going to be goaltending too. I think same thing here. But like I said, I think, the experience from the Stars, I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of wins out here because that Seattle's not going to be no pushover. I'll say Dallas in maybe 6 because I think the Kraken may make this series very interesting.
Yeah, I will go opposite of you. I'm going Dallas in 5, but I will not be surprised if it ends in 6 because Seattle is just that good. Of course, you don't beat the Stanley Cup chance for nothing and do it by quote unquote getting by. This Seattle team is a very good team. As I mentioned, they're a very physical team. They get in your face. They're good, especially along the boards. And so Dallas, if they could control the pace, especially offensively, I think they'll get this series. They have just a little bit more scoring punch than the Kraken does. So I'm going with Dallas in 5, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ended in 6.
Absolutely. So we can't preview the other series in the Eastern Conference, I should say, because we don't know it's going to be the Devils or the Rangers. So, but whoever wins that will have to go to Carolina and face the Hurricanes. We don't know the time or we don't know the time or what network's going to be on. So we'll have to pay it by ear. Just check keep your eye on your local listings. But this second game in the semis, I should say, got Edmonton and Vegas. This should be interesting, Sid, because I feel like the Vegas have been exercising those demons for the last few years. I don't know. I mean, look, Connor McDavid, I think he's going to be the key. They really they need to keep doing what they did against that series against the Kings. Just have more guys step up because Connor McDavid was a factor, but again, it was other guys that stepped up with them. So that's going to be interesting there. Also, too, same thing with Vegas. I think, look, like I said, Jack Eichel, Jonathan Mersoff. I can never say that guy's name. Chandler Stevenson. I think those are going to be the keys here for those for the Knights. So I really think this game could go 7. I have no clue who's going to win. I'll tell you Friday, but this is going to be one of those toss-up series. I feel like.
I'm taking the Oilers in 6. That's my prediction. We're gonna get out of Jonathan Quick for the Vegas Golden Knights. I think it's gonna Golden is gonna come. Is gonna be the key for me from Vegas, and for Edmonton. Can they keep that scoring punch up in this series? Now you have to play a team as physical as the Kings tried to do in that first round series.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with this series. I think this could be one of those series, like I said, could go 6 or 7. So we'll just see what happens with that. Now the rest of the schedule, of course, again, we don't know what the schedule is going to be. I guess they're waiting for the Devils Rangers game to be over with, so that they'll have the scheduling. But scheduling for Thursday will be game 2 of Florida and Toronto, and Seattle and Dallas in game 2 of their series. So that's the schedule for the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs coming up this week.
Yeah. You listen to Second City Sports Zone Chicago, the Monday edition, the first episode for the month of May. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. Before we kick it to Old School TV Monday, Lakina, we mentioned this on Friday. I want to discuss it a little bit further with you. Of course, we know the trouble that Bally Sports have been going through over the last few months. Of course, down there in Baker, we see they had to pay many of these NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball teams a certain percentage as part of the new financial restructuring. But the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury, I know Brittany Griner's back. I'm sure we'll get into that on our episode on Friday. But the Phoenix Mercury, the WNBA team, and the Phoenix Suns, the NBA team, they both want to opt out for next season and broadcast their games on, guess what, over-the-air television.
Well, yeah, I think. Look, if you're Phoenix is a pretty big city, so I'm thinking that I wonder will other cities go this route? Will I don't think LA or New York are gonna do that. If Chicago does it, remember their contract's gonna be up after next season.
Yeah, with NBC Sports Chicago, yes.
Yep. So I'm wondering, I think about the White Sox and the Bulls. I don't know about the Blackhawks, but I'm wondering, will they do that? Will they, go over the air and maybe perhaps, do it for free? I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's too much money to be made here. So
especially in the streaming department, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure Phoenix can do that. But like I said, I think they have a lot of left overhang, so they can. And it's not that it's big, but it's not super big like the 3 cities I mentioned. So I can't see some of the bigger cities going that route. Now, could I see maybe a Memphis doing that? Maybe one of the Florida markets do that. Maybe Texas, maybe. So it'll be to see if other cities follow suit in this. But again, there's a lot of who's got to go through in order to make this happen. So I commend the Sun and the Mercury, the Suns and the Mercury for wanting to do this. It's very available for everybody, ad free. But the market, the way the market is, the way the monopoly set up is, I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see.
Also,
so good for them
like I said, yeah, it's just like we've been saying, there's a lot of money being made in streaming now. So streaming is an option. Is it the only option? No. Is it an option? Yes, because the way we consume our program, that's everything. But we talk about live sports in this instance. People are finding different ways to watch their sporting events. So it'll be cool if some teams will go the over-the-air television, but obviously you're not going to eliminate the streaming services because that's the way these teams are making their money. So, and like you said, we'll see what happens if these mid-sized markets can do it. These big market cities, like you mentioned, like Chicago, LA, New York, I don't see that happening. But stranger things that happen. As we always say, people want to need options. So we'll monitor this Phoenix situation. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it should be should be just see what happens. Like I said, I think there's still a lot to dial in here, so a lot of layers to be peeled. So it still will be a long ways away before this happens. So we'll keep you guys updated on that. So okay, Sid, it's that time for Old School TV Monday. So where are we going to this week?
Let's head to our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and hang out at 227. That's right, the old school NBC TV sitcom. 227 was an American sitcom television series that did air on NBC from 1985 to 1990. The series stars Marla Gibbs as Mary Jenkins, sharp-tongued city resident, gossip, and housewife. The other main characters on the program were her husband Lester, played by Hal Williams, their daughter Brenda, Regina King. That was her first star to you younger folks out there. Landlady Rose Holloway, played by the late Atlanta Reed Hall, and neighbor Sandra Clark, Jackie Harry, and Helen Martin. She played Pearl Shea. The series was adapted from a play written in 1978 by Christine Houston about the lives of women in a predominantly black apartment building in the 1950s Chicago. The setting of the series, however, was changed to the present day Washington, D.C. The show was created as a starring vehicle for Marla Gibbs, who became famous as Florence Johnston she played the maid on the famously CBS series The Jeffersons, and she started in Houston's play in Los Angeles. The role was similar in nature for Florence Gibbs' character. The housewife Mary Jenkins loved the good gossip and often spoke what she thought, and sometimes the not so favorable results. According to Gibbs, 227 was originally offered to ABC, but sold to NBC later. Since The Jeffersons was still on the air on CBS, the new show was scheduled to begin in 1986. However, when The Jeffersons were abruptly and unexpectedly canceled in 1985, Gibbs was free to begin, and 227 went into production a year earlier than had previously planned.
Yeah, I heard about that. I think it was also based on a play that Marla Gibbs was doing on Broadway at the time, as he was kind of like back and forth between doing the Jeffersons and 227. I got my dreams about the Jeffersons. Well, we'll do that show on at a later time. But 227, I think, was one of those. It was well ahead of its time. This is a inner city apartment building. Of course, you saw this happening. Guys, folks gossip and such. You got guys at work. Very blue collar like neighborhood and such. So it was terrific. And of course, this is Sandra, Jack A, of course, fresh off her stint on Another World. So I'm doing the soaps thing here, but this is her. I think her role was supposed to last like 4 episodes. I think.
Yeah, she became a mainstay in the first 4 seasons. She had a reoccurring role in the last season.
Yeah, well, also too, she had a spinoff that didn't, take off. But again, that's another thing that we'll
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that took off. But it was one of those Star is Born kind of things, and Marla Gibbs was not very happy about that. That that it kind of they started shifting the show around towards Sandra and all her adventures and misadventures and dating and such. So that didn't go over well with Marla Gibbs for years. I know since they have made up. Thank you, Regina King, for helping that happen. But look, Hal Williams, I think was great as Lester. That blue collar guy, owned his own construction business and such. And Helen Martin, of course, the busybody. God rest her soul, as Pearl. Of course, her grandson Calvin, played by Curtis Baldwin. He was raising, I think when his mom died, I think his dad was in the military. Of course, Regina King, of course, the adorable Regina King as Brenda. They were a little bit strict with her, I think, at times, but it was the 80s, so I guess you still had to be a little bit strict. But
we watched her grow up before our eyes on that television. We talk about Keisha Knight Pulliam, who played Rudy on the Cosby Show, and to a lesser extent Tempest Blesser, who played Vanessa on the Cosby Show. We watched those two grow up, but Regina King belongs in that group as well. We watched her grow up right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, absolutely not. Like some of probably the more famous episodes, I guess, the one with Bobby Brown that last season with Sonny Jackson.
Yes.
Barry Scoble was a comedian. He played Brenda's teacher in the later years of high school. Of course, Paul Winfield, who played the new landlord in that last season and a half, among others. The Bobby Brown episode, I think a lot of people forget. That was probably the most famous episode. Morris Day was on season 3 or 4.
If you follow him on Instagram, he put up a clip of that a few months ago. I was like, that's why I almost forgot about that episode. Yeah.
Yep. They were afraid to go. They were afraid to be serious. I know they had a drug episode that I know from what I heard from what Marla Gibbs said in interviews years ago, that they had to do a lot of. It was sort of a requirement for shows to do drug episodes at the time, so they decided to do a little more serious. It's such.
We were in a just say no era back then.
Yes, that was a whole. Yeah, that was kind of like a requirement, like I said, to for all shows to do a drug episode in some form. But I'm trying to think of another famous episode. Oh yeah, when they went on Family Feud. Remember that episode?
Yes.
With the late great Ray Combs on there, that was a pretty funny episode. Yeah, it was I mean, I wish it ended better. I know it ended. I think NBC canceled. I think it was like 1990. I think it was when
1990. Yep.
When it was canceled. I wish it could have gone on for another season. I want to see Brenda get adjusted to college and what it would Jack A came back if all that other stuff hadn't transpired behind the scenes allegedly. Yeah, it was nice. Kevin Peter Hall, of course, who came on. The late great Kevin Peter Hall, who came on to play Rose's love interest near the end of that. But yeah, I think it was a solid. It was a solid show from like start to finish. I mean, they mixed it up with a little bit of comedy, with a little bit of social relevant topics and such. But they did it in a very balanced way. They were preachy about it. They still kept it funny. They still kept it light, and area, and I think they realized that it was still a sitcom, like, not to be too serious with everything, but I like that. That's one of the reasons why I liked it, because it got that great balance.
Yes, and also two future stars that came out of that cast as well was Ronaldo Ray. Of course, he was a comedian. You saw him
Oh
on
yeah,
Comedy View. You saw him on Comedy View on BET
yeah,
in the '90s. Of course, remember he played the guy that I forgot what you call him. He was working in the liquor store in that movie, White Man Can't Jump,
yeah,
before Marcus Johnson attempted to rob him for the hustle for
right,
some money for basketball.
yeah, right, yeah, that
and
was hilarious.
and we had a young actress named Countess Vaughn, for you younger for us, before
Yeah.
Moesha in the '90s.
Yeah, she played Alexandra, who was a super genius. She was actually
Mm-hmm.
fresh off her sit on Star Search, which I think she went undefeated there. I think she was one of the grand
That's
champions
right.
of that. And they actually hired, the producers saw her and hired her on the spot. She played Alexandra the genius. That was going to high school with Brenda. That was a nice little dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Only lasted this season though, so I don't know if it would have lasted beyond that. But I think that's all that she signed up for, was that one season. I don't know what happened after that. But also remember Angela Bassett. Before, of course, she became a 2-time Oscar nominee. She played a guest spot on there in that last season. But yeah, so a lot of interesting stars, came in out of that series. You can stream it pretty much anywhere. I know Pluto TV. I know it's on there. I know they got a black sitcom section. I know it's on there. I believe it's on Hulu too. I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I believe it's on Hulu. I think it just got on Hulu not too long ago. I think there's another. I think Amazon. I know it's on the first. I think it's on Amazon. Tubi TV, which is just free too. So yeah, so you can you can find 227 pretty much anywhere streaming, and also too in Pluto TV and Tubi cases for free.
Yes, and also to one more guest starring Ron Lakina. Remember the Temptations? They were quote unquote back at the time.
Yes.
Treat it like a lady. That's when they
Yes.
had that song out at the time in the mid '80s. Yeah, they had a guest starring role on that sitcom as well.
Yeah, and I think there was somebody else that was on there. I can't think of another. There was another group that was on there, but yeah, I mean, look, it had a great mix of like I said, social relevance, and also a sitcom stuff. I wish I wish it stayed on longer, but the crazy part of sitcoms. But yeah, so like I said, I feel like it's finally getting its due, finally, and yeah, it's going to be, like I said, I know I know Regina King kind of teased that they would do a reboot. I guess that's another thing. I guess with everyone wants to do a reboot now, but like I said, if we could get some of those guys, I know Hal Wood, it's got to be like in his 90s now, right? So I think he and Marley are about the same. He's still living too. I think he's still acting. I think occasionally. So that'd be a nice sort of way to kind of like make a dedication to Elena Reed Hall, and a nice little dedication for that. So yeah, they could bring. I know Curtis Baldwin said he'd be in for a reboot. So we'll see what happens.
Yep, and Marley Gibbs is 91 years young, and she's still going strong. And don't forget, she did the theme song for that show as well. Sounded good, by the way.
Yep. Yeah, that was a really great theme song there. So, Second City Sports. We are Old School TV Monday this week for the salute. The long range NBC sitcom 227.
7. All right, Lakina, take us home.
Follow by Keenan McGee on the Twitter, and Akia's going to be on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Make sure you download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We're available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. Now, I also want to mention with the 227, it came on Saturdays. That was back when the networks actually cared about original Saturday programming, scripted Saturday programming, I should say. Before long, sports, and now they got all I know 48 Hours of Mystery and such. But yeah, that was back when Saturday was one of the nights to watch for must-see television. So I wanted to kind of get that in there real quick. All right, so don't forget. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you can catch Sports on Chicago, of course, on Roku TV. Of
Roku.
course. Yep. So it's all right there for you. You get whatever Google, Apple, whatever Play Store that you have. If you got the Roku TV app or got the Roku app on your phone or on your whatever device you got, just type in Sports Zone Chicago. It's right there for you. You got catch our shows, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas. What's up, cuz? I know they're going to be on tonight, so I'm sure they're going to have a lot of NBA playoff talk as well. So yeah, so anytime, where you want, Sports Zone Chicago is right there for you on Roku TV.
Yeah, and don't forget, you can catch Second City Sports live and in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Catch Second City Sports live and in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right, guys. Enjoy the playoffs and the baseball. I know there's going to be some interesting NFL news too coming up down the pike as well. So we'll see what happens. I know there's already some buzz with Aaron Rodgers. I think he and Garrett Wilson just had could be a nice little team in there too. I know the Jets fans are very excited about that. So, but enjoy the sports this week. First said on the key to Second City. This has been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
I guess. Go Sox. Holla!